Welcome back to this Ingram Angle Town Hall. Chicago's violence is hitting close to home for Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell, who's watched in dismay as violence increasingly plagues his native city. And this week, Gianno went to some of the worst impacted neighborhoods to ask residents how the mayhem is affecting their daily lives. Here's a sample.
It's called the trenches right here, man. It go down right here, like, bro, it go down, man. It go down. It ain't sweet, man.
So you've been shot? How many times you been shot?
I've been shot 2 times, bro. You know what I'm saying? Got me right there, bro. You feel me?
Joining us with more is Gianno Caldwell. We're also joined by Vic Maggio, who is a citizen journalist who chronicles how violence is affecting these communities. Both of you, it's great to see you. Gianno, this is obviously near and dear to your heart. You're from here. You're infuriated. I'm not even from here, and I'm getting more and more angry as we've gone on in this town hall. But we had to channel this to answers and solutions.
Absolutely.
Tell us what you if there's one thing that could change in the worst affected neighborhoods to make a real difference, what would it be?
First, 2 things. I want to thank you for coming and bringing the show to Chicago, doing this town hall.
Thank you.
I know your heart. I know this is something you really care about. This isn't political, so I thank you for that.
Thank you.
The second thing, because we're having a conversation about solutions, we need to have an open dialogue. There was a guest in the first block who said that there is a myth about distrust between police and community. That's a false narrative. Certainly, Laquan McDonald proves that out in data. But in terms of this, your question, if there's one thing that can change, it's always going to end up with jobs and opportunity. And as I interviewed a number of the residents throughout the city of Chicago, that was one thing that they yelled. But there were so many that were married to the life because they had no exposure to anything else. So outside of saying I want jobs and opportunities, there's no path to get there. And that's honestly something that needs to be worked on, sincerely.
When I realized how bad the problem was when I first started going into the streets, I was sitting at a stoplight, and I have a squad car that I drive in. And there was a young boy about 5 years old with his mother sitting underneath one of the bus enclosures. And I waved to the young man, and I started playing with the radio. And when I looked over at the young man, he went like this to me. He was 5 years old. I realized how deep this problem really was.
Talk about distrust.
And the next question I had was, who taught him that?
Gianno, I mean, that's powerful. I mean, and again, it's Laquan McDonald.
Yeah.
It's that narrative, and that means it's the whole relationship. That subsumes everything else in what can be actually a really positive and necessary relationship between a community and law enforcement.
And it goes back to Burge, too. This goes
That's true, too. That's true as well. Decades
way back.
But there has to be honesty, I think, when we're having these particular dialogues. I think there's so much that we can do, and I know you've been advocating for President Trump to come in and do a town hall. Well, thanks to you, we're having it. He doesn't have to come in and do the town hall. He can just bring the solution, sincerely, right. And that's what we're looking for. But you need help. You need mental health services. There's so much that's needed in this community. I think Maze Jackson rightly pointed out that the unemployment rate for the African Americans in the state of Illinois is the highest in the country. That's been the case. If you're an African American man in the city of Chicago between the ages of 18 and 24, 47% of you are unemployed and out of school.
In a booming economy.
In a booming economy. That survey was done a couple years ago. But the numbers, I'm sure, are very
It's the lowest African American unemployment.
That is correct.
On record.
Correct, nationally.
Not in
but for the state of Illinois, it's different. In the city of Chicago, obviously, more African American.
Now, Gianno, you found out more in your reporting on the street. What'd you find?
Absolutely. We went into the Austin community, Englewood, Pullman. We went all across the city of Chicago where the violence is at its highest. And we heard some interesting things from some of the gang members that were in the community perpetrating the violence. Let's watch.
You ain't choose to be out here doing all this. The streets chose us. Period. Far as like, you know, growing up, you know, so couldn't get this, couldn't get that.
It's like we ain't
got
no
shot,
choice.
Got shot. I almost died 3-4 times, man. Real out here, bro. Like, I can't keep it more 100 than this, man.
Ain't no Johns out here, so people gonna do what they need to do to survive. They gonna rob, sell drugs, do whatever to survive. Crank car, that's his life. You got people who want to change and people who want to stay in the street. And the people who trying to change is even harder on them because they ain't used to a legit life. You feel me? Like me, I'm trying to change, but I ain't used to no legit life. That's why I'm used to selling drugs.
If somebody were to give you a job, would you get out of the life? Yeah, I would. I got jobs and opportunities for you, resources. So if you get a job, if I help you get a job, you would get out of the life. You would no longer be involved in the gangs. 100%.
on live national television. You saying that you would get out the gang if you had that opportunity?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna make it happen.
Well, it's, I mean, to see those young men, I mean, Vic, the hope is there. I mean, everyone here tonight could be anywhere. They decided to come and watch this show and chew over some ideas, frustration, solutions.
Yeah.
But there's a desire for a better way. I mean,
And he just demonstrated that in the last clip. He said, if you get a job, if you help me get a job and opportunity, I'll leave the life. I talked to a dear friend who's in the audience, Charles McKeever. I talked to him about him. He said, listen, I'll hire him. He spoke to him already, so he's already hired. This guy that you just saw in that last piece. So I think that speaks to, if you bring the resources to the doorstep, a lot of people will take them, but those resources have to be there.
But Vic, you have to show up at a job with a sense of yourself. You have to put yourself together. You have to have skills, basic skills that you learn in school or from your parents. That's part of it. It can't just show up and say, give me a, you know, you have to show up and want a job and get the proper training to do that. And that's a great sense of fulfillment. To get your first paycheck, even if it's not as much as you want because taxes and everything else, but to get your first paycheck and it's legitimate, that's a great feeling. Who wants to be in a gang? It's not a good life. You're going to end up dead, most likely.
But go ahead.
Do you know what built these neighborhoods in Chicago? Were major corporations that built
industry.
the structure. And when you go into these neighborhoods today, you see vast swaths of land empty. Why this mayor is not incentivizing businesses to come back here so that they can rebuild. Give them the proper tools to rebuild these communities. And then everything else will fall around these industries that come into these communities. Property values will go up. What's happened is the industry's left, and the complete opposite effect of what built them has happened is dropped.
The tax base is gone.
It is a huge thing. The economy in these neighborhoods, they're desolate.
But it's not just the government solution, because there's a deficit of personal responsibility. And I met a man yesterday, Tyrone Muhammad, who has a group. He has 300 ex-cons that he brings in to stop the violence. So we need to take advantage of the opportunities that exist in our community, and we need to exercise what we have to stop the violence.
A strong, righteous man can do a lot to inspire young, dejected, disoriented young men. One righteous man.
Facts.
With courage.
And I bet you go in there, Giano, you start talking to these guys, they'll look at you like, hey, look, he looks pretty cool. I want to be more like him.
I came from the same neighborhood.
But I know, but it doesn't matter.
Projects.
You came and you succeeded because you worked hard.
I was
you nose to the
exposed. My
grindstone.
grandfather exposed me to different things. So
A father figure, a male role model.
My father exposed me.
Your individual choice. That's what it comes
Personal
down
responsibility.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Jono. Love your pieces, Vic. Great to meet you. Great to see you.